will share his experience, strength, and hope for approximately 45 minutes. We ask out of respect for the speaker, everyone remain seated until our speaker has finished. It is my pleasure to introduce our speaker for the evening, Nate.
I'm Nate. I'm an alcoholic. Thanks, John, for asking me to do this. I appreciate the invite. It's an honor to speak at you guys' meeting. I guess I'll start off by getting a couple quick things out of the way, just because I think these things are really important for new people to know. I've been sober since May 28th of 2019. I have a sponsor. I sponsor other men in recovery. I work the steps. I have service commitments. I'm involved in service. I think that's really important. And yeah, I have a home group. That's another thing that's important. My home group is the Broad Highway Group. It's on Wednesdays at 5:30. But yeah, like I said, I think that stuff is important to know, because I think that is really instrumental, or what I know it was really instrumental in me being able to stay sober and to break that cycle of relapsing and bouncing in and out of treatment centers and just being really miserable and hopeless all the time. And that's where I was at the end. It didn't start out like that. I remember having kind of a pretty normal childhood. Nothing crazy or traumatic really happened to me when I was a kid. But I always had this really like deep-seated rebellious streak. Like I never wanted to do what people told me to do, particularly my parents. Like I was talking to my dad the other day, and he was like, he reminded me of how hard it was to get me to do things when I was a child. Like I just refused to listen. And I ended up getting in a lot of trouble growing up because of that. I started getting in trouble at school, vandalizing things. I was arrested the first time in my life at the age of 12 and taken out of my elementary school in handcuffs, which I don't think happens to a lot of kids. It was pretty embarrassing to be taken out of school in front of all your friends by a couple of police officers, and scary too, for that matter. But I still continued to do that kind of thing. I was on probation my entire all of my teenage years. I was on probation from the age of 12 to 17 or 18. But by the time I was legally an adult, I started drinking and using other substances at about the age of 12. I didn't have that. I used to, in my story, I used to say that I had, because you hear a lot of people say they had that life-changing spiritual experience the first time they got drunk. And I didn't really have that, if I'm being honest. And I used to tell that in my story, but it's just, I don't think that's an honest thing to say. I remember feeling good. I remember feeling like really enjoying it. But it wasn't instantly that thing that I had been searching for my entire life. But I always remember feeling like I was searching for something, like something was missing. I remember feeling like something wasn't right. And I don't know, I've heard this analogy before. I like this analogy about, it feels like everyone else was given an instruction manual for life and I'd never got one. Like, that's what it felt like being a kid, and being an adult too, for that matter, when I wasn't loaded. But yeah, and I think I started drinking and using other forms of alcohol like that initially because I wanted to fit in. It came from a desire to be a part of a group. I felt lonely, like an outsider, like I didn't belong anywhere. And so that made me feel a part of. It made me, like, I think my whole life I've just wanted to be one of the cool kids, and that made me feel like one of the cool kids. But it didn't take long for that to completely snowball out of control. You know, I was doing that. I was getting loaded every day, getting drunk every day at a pretty young age, and that's all I could think about. I mentioned I was on probation since the age of 12. I had that rebellious attitude, that defiant streak. And even though I was on probation, I would still continue to smoke weed and do that kind of thing. And I would shoplift and get arrested for that. I caught a felony case when I was 15 years old, felony possession charge. And I was put on probation for that. And I continued to break the conditions of my probation until they threw me in jail for a year. They threw me in a juvenile detention center at the age of 15 for a year. And that was that, I think, out of anything in my childhood was, I guess, could be considered a traumatic experience. It was scary to be taken away from my family and more or less thrown in a cage for a year. And I had a lot of resentment surrounding that for a long time. I held on to that resentment up until I got sober this time. I felt like I was the victim of a messed up justice system, and it felt like all the adults in my life had turned their back on me. It just made it, I didn't feel safe in the world anymore because, I guess, of that experience. And it gave me an excuse to play the victim. Like, after getting sober and doing an inventory and really taking a closer look at that situation, like, I'm not saying that it was right to throw me in jail, but I put that judge and those lawyers, I really put their backs up against the wall. I continued to fail UAs, and I continued to get arrested for other things. I played a huge part in that, and it's my fault that I got to have that experience. It took me a long time to be able to be honest about that. But yeah, that when I got out of there at age 16, or maybe it was 17, I remember age 17 was the first time I actually went to a treatment center, an inpatient drug and alcohol substance abuse treatment center. It wasn't the first time I was introduced to that kind of thing. I was actually introduced to it when I was 15 in jail, because I went through something called the RSAT program, the Residential Substance Abuse Treatment Program. And it's kind of funny, as a condition of that program, in order to like level up and get more privileges and get to go outside and that kind of thing, they forced you to memorize all 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous word for word. So I have had all 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous memorized since the age of 15. It has not done me any good until about 2.5 years ago or so. Now it comes in really handy. I use it all the time now, but up until I actually put some action behind them, there was no benefit to knowing them. But yeah, I got out of that place and I got sent to another, to a rehab after jail, which kind of tells me they knew I had a problem back then. And it was kind of a weird experience in that juvenile rehab. I did well there. I actually didn't mind it that much. It was kind of nice to take a break from the rest of life and just kind of sit around and have people feed me and have things taken care of for me. And I learned to get along in those places really well. I felt comfortable there. And I remember, I remember feeling that feeling of comfort inside a treatment center at the age of 17. And ever since then, my life has been a story of running until, getting drunk, getting loaded until I couldn't anymore, and the consequences got too big, and the pain got too much. And then I knew that I could check into a rehab, and I'd have a nice warm place to sleep, and people would treat me nice. I learned how to get along with the people in there really well. I learned how to make friends pretty quickly and easily. But it was just this repeating cycle over and over again. I actually lost count of the number of times I've been in a treatment center. I think it's upwards of 20. That does not include detoxes or sober livings. And that's pretty sad, Like, that is a lot of time in my life that was completely wasted. I don't know that it was completely wasted, but I wish I hadn't spent it like that. Now, knowing what I know now, and having actually applied these steps here on the wall, I realize how much of a waste of time that was. And that's not to say treatment centers are bad. Treatment centers serve an awesome purpose. They separate people from whatever they're having problems with, and they get people healthy again, and they get them thinking better again. But when you use treatment centers the way I use treatment centers, it's not good. I more or less learned how to make my health insurance pay for my rent and utilities for several months at a time. That's the way I was using treatment centers. But yeah, I repeated that cycle over and over again. Things, sometimes I could kind of keep it together when I wasn't sober for a while. I could keep a job for a year, maybe 2 years. I could maintain for certain periods of time. The longest I ever was sober before this time was 9 months, or just shy of 9 months. Because my head starts chewing on me. It starts chewing on me after a while if I don't have some kind of solution. And I very easily forget how miserable I was before I got sober. I forget how painful it was to be in that spot of just being completely hopeless and having no options. The peculiar mental twist, they call it, where you forget all that and you justify taking that first drink again. I guess one of those times where I managed to maintain for a little while and hold a job for a little while, I was living in an apartment in Topeka, Kansas. And the apartment was not in a very nice neighborhood. I used to pass out face down drunk on my front porch and just be there for hours, and like people would just walk by, they wouldn't like check on you or make sure you were breathing or anything. But like I had lived there for a couple years, and I had recently gotten fired finally from the job that I had been maintaining, and I got drunk for weeks straight. I just would polish off a handle of vodka after if my eyes popped open, I would start drinking immediately until I passed out again. That kind of drinking. And one day my dad actually, he came to check on me because he hadn't heard from me in a while and was concerned. And he came over to my apartment and then knocked on the door, and I didn't answer, and he let himself in and found me just completely, I think, passed out at first, and he was trying to wake me up, and I was basically unresponsive. He couldn't get me to wake up. He was scared, and he called the paramedics, and they showed up, and I started to come to. Woke up a little bit and got real aggressive and violent and told him to get out of my house or I'd, kill him, and just it's crazy. And so the paramedics called the police, and the police showed up, and I did the same thing to them too. I threatened them, told them to get out of my apartment. They weren't having that. They essentially tackled me to the ground and dragged me out of my apartment and threw me in the back of the ambulance, fortunately, not the police car. And I was going completely berserk, like kicking and screaming, like cussing at everybody. Just, I had lost my mind. I snapped that day. And yeah, it was one of the ugliest times in my drinking days. Like I said, I got strapped to a gurney. They took me to the hospital where I continued threatening all the staff, and they pumped me full of antipsychotic drugs, and I woke up the next day without any pants on in a hospital bed, trying to piece together what had happened because I could remember bits and pieces. Come to find out, I was naked throughout the entire episode. So that was interesting to find out the next day. But yeah, I was really pretty hopeless at that point, and I did what I know how to do, which is to check myself into rehab, and I did that once again. And, sort of abandoned the apartment and in Topeka, did that 30 days in rehab. And the rehab that I was at suggested that I try to relocate. They wanted me to come to a rehab here in Prescott, Arizona. This was in 2016. No, I missed a chunk there. After that psychotic episode with the police, I ended up going to Wichita and living in an Oxford house for a year or two. Once again, relapsing. Yeah, there were a couple rehabs in between that, is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, I came to Prescott for the first time in 2016 through rehabs. And I didn't, I did what I always do. Like I said, I'm really good at going to rehab. I graduate rehab with honors, like summa cum laude or whatever it is. They like me there. And I did that once again. Stayed in Prescott for a little bit. Wound up in Phoenix. because I was, searching for other recreational activities besides alcohol. I wound up living down there for another year and a half or so. And I was living down there, and I was about to get evicted from the crappy trailer I lived in, and I didn't have any money. I was driving Uber around the city of Phoenix to support my alcoholism and other habits, which isn't a safe thing to do. Nobody's ever going to order an Uber in here again. But I was about to get kicked out of my home, and my dad makes the horrible mistake of calling me and asking me, "Hey, would you be willing to move back in with us for a little bit in Kansas and help us fix up the house so that we can sell it?" And so I jumped on that, like I was about to be homeless, and I had been lying to them for several years about being sober, so they thought that I was sober again. So I moved back to Kansas and proceeded to wreck their lives once again. Proceeded to hurt them in all sorts of ways, steal from them, lie to them. The same thing that a lot of us do to our families. Until they had enough once again. And I remember I was in another pretty dark spot. I was sitting in their garage and essentially trying to drink myself to death again. I remember sitting there and just feeling completely hopeless and feeling like there was nothing left in the world for me and I didn't have a purpose. And I remember like just breaking down and weeping for the first time in a really long time, sitting in that garage and feeling completely hopeless. And I don't know if like for whatever reason that day I just got the notion or was given the notion that maybe there is a purpose for me left. Maybe there is a reason for me to not end it. And so I decided, all right, maybe there is something left. And so once again, I did what I know how to do, and I started calling treatment centers to see which one would take my insurance. And I ended up in Prescott again at yet another treatment center. I graduated again. I did 60 or 90 days there again. And everybody was, all the staff were real hopeful and thinking he's really going to get it this time. He's one of the best clients here and all this. And a week later after I left that place, I got drunk again, So it's like all this pain, all that experience of being completely hopeless and like really feeling like I had a real surrender at that point, it still wasn't enough to keep me from picking up the drink again. I'm completely powerless over my choice in whether or not I drink. I have no power over that at all. And I don't know, right about this time, I was starting to meet some new people in AA here in Prescott, and starting to get to know some people. And like by this time, I was convinced, having done all this treatment and having been in and out of the rooms for so long, I had convinced myself that I had tried AA and that it wouldn't work for me, and that I was some special kind of messed up, that this just wouldn't work for me. I'm, too messed up. And also by this time, I could start to recognize, like, not that it wasn't blatantly obvious, but I could start to recognize that pattern of getting sober, relapsing, checking into rehab, getting sober, relapsing, checking into rehab. And I remember I used to hear, I don't hear it that much anymore, but I remember hearing people say in meetings that, you know, if I relapse again, I'm going to die, you know, and that, or I don't know if I know I have another relapse in me, I might not have another recovery in me, which is true for me. But I remember that if I relapse again, I'm going to die thing. And at this point, like, that was kind of my goal. You know, I was so sick of life that was really what I was shooting for when I picked up that first drink again. That was my intention, was to not be around anymore. And for whatever reason, it occurred to me that, you know, maybe if I relapse again, I won't die. Maybe if I relapse again, I will just continue living this, you know, hollow, pathetic life for who knows how long. Like, just being a shell of a human being going through life in pain all the time, afraid of everything. And like that I think was what really scared me. That was what got me to become willing to take some of these suggestions and do some of this stuff that these old guys had been trying to hand me, you know, gently hand it to me for years and years. Also around that time, like I said, I was meeting new people in AA here in Prescott, and I met a couple of guys that, like, really inspired me. They shared their stories, and I could tell that they thought the same way that I thought. They were just as messed up as I was, and as hopeless at one point. And they had done this AA thing and, like, really thrown themselves into it and given their all to it. And their lives had gotten huge and really cool. Like, they had traveled the world and done all this cool stuff, and like I just remember feeling inspired by that and thinking, why can't that be me? Maybe this could work for me. And I started being a little bit more honest with myself, and I realized that I had never really done AA to the best of my ability. I had only ever done the bits and pieces that were convenient and that were easy to do. I never did all of it, the uncomfortable stuff, the stuff that really changes a person and, like, builds character. And so that I think is where I made my step 3. I made a decision to really try this thing for once, and not just half-ass it either, like really throw myself all into it. Because at that point I had nothing left to lose, you know? I had no backup plan, there was no plan B. My life was just really unpleasant. It was not nice to be in my skin. And the results were beyond anything I would have expected, you know? It didn't look like I expected it to either. I spent quite a bit of time doing some uncomfortable things. Like, if you're like me, you have this tendency to think, like, I think that I deserve to feel good all the time, you know? I think that's what life is about, is like feeling good or feeling okay. And, you know, that stuff is nice, but the feeling good you get from getting drunk or from, you know, doing any other number of the instant gratification kind of stuff, you know, like binge watching Netflix for 4 hours, or gambling, or like sex, or anything. It's hollow compared to that sense of joy and contentment and freedom that you get from, like, trudging a little bit and, like, putting in the work and doing uncomfortable stuff. and yeah, like I think I was just really immature. Still am a lot of times, but spiritually immature, if you will. But yeah, I got a sponsor, and I did a thorough fourth step, and a fifth, and really applied myself to learning this stuff, because there's a lot to this program. It's simple, but there's a lot of nuance. It seems like, or a lot of differences of, I don't know. I read a pamphlet, I think, I forget what it was, but the guy was talking about how alcoholics have a seemingly inexhaustible ability to talk about alcoholism, which we do, and still be passionate about it too, and still enjoy doing it. Because we were so desperate from the way we were living before. Why wouldn't we be passionate about something that can pick us up from such a low place and allow us to live a life of fellowship and freedom and all that. I'm getting a little off track here, but like I said, I really applied myself to the steps. I started making amends to people. That was really powerful for me. That was a huge experience, because I had screwed over quite a few people. And doing that, starting to make those amends, pay back those debts, and talk to those people I had hurt, and admit that I was wrong to do the things that I did. And then changing and not doing those things again, it allowed me to really hold my head up higher and breathe easier and not feel like I was looking over my shoulder all the time. And I started seeing the 9-step promises come true in my life, and they still are. It's amazing. I've been getting to go through a particularly cool experience lately with my family, involving amends. My parents recently decided to move out here to Arizona from Kansas. They said that they were doing it because they wanted to be closer to me, which is awesome. They're both getting older. My dad was diagnosed with Parkinson's last year, and they wanted to be closer to me so that I can help them, which is amazing to me, considering all the things that I have done to them over the years, all the ways I've betrayed their trust and taken advantage of them. And about a month ago, I loaded all their stuff into a couple of moving vans, and we all drove cross country to Prescott, Arizona. And and it's cool to watch the fellowship come together for you too. Like when you're really involved in AA, you make friends with people, and people show up to help you, and it's an awesome experience to see that. Like a good friend of mine rented her house out to them temporarily until they could find a place to buy in here in Prescott. I had friends from the program helping me move all their stuff once I got here, it's like another family, a much bigger family. It's been cool having them close the last month, getting to go out to eat with them and spend time with them. It's really challenging sometimes, because there's a lot of crap in that relationship still. I'm sure you guys can relate. Like your parents know how to push your buttons. You know how to push their buttons. know you better than you know yourself often. But I don't know. It's cool to be able to show up for them again, you know, or not again, but show up for them for the first time in my life and actually be the son that I never was before. Actually, like I paid for the storage unit that they have all their stuff in right now. I go over there and fix stuff for them and make them dinner. I took my mom and dad out to dinner the other night, and it was kind of funny. It wasn't. My dad, you remember that story I told earlier about being dragged out of my apartment by the police? My dad brought that up at dinner the other night. He was like, hey, do you remember that time that, except he wasn't laughing. And, I'm serious. You know, he told me that was probably the most scared, the most afraid he's ever been in his life, because he thought that his son was about to get shot by the police. You know, he thought that his son had lost his mind and gone completely insane. He said it was terrifying, and it was powerful to hear him say that, and I think he needed to say that to me, you know, because after it happened, I just glossed over it for years and didn't bring it up. Whenever they tried to bring it up, I would just avoid the subject and pretend it didn't happen. And the other night, I got to sit there and really listen to my dad tell that story, and it was hard. But I don't know. I think I'm a better for showing up and letting him say his piece, and that's part, I think, of making that amends is having the courage to confront the things that you did in the past and let other people say their piece about it. So yeah, that was a kind of a powerful experience I had the other night. And you know, I'm sure there's so much more to be revealed. You know, they live 15 minutes away from me now. They are very close. I'm going to be seeing a lot more of them, and I'm really grateful for that. It gives me the opportunity to be my highest self, you know, showing up for them in ways that, you know, I never could before. You know, it feels good. Like I said, it gives me that feeling of, you know, kind of being able to hold my head up a little higher, and yeah, you know, it's only going to get, I'm sure, bigger from there. I have a lot of other cool stuff in my life now since getting sober. Something that I think everyone should do when they get sober is find something that they absolutely love to do and are passionate about, and then seek it and follow it and keep trying to do it, even when your head gives you all the excuses not to do it, even when your head's telling you, oh, I can't afford that, or I could never do that. Keep pursuing it anyway. You know, when I was a kid, I used to ride horses competitively. I used to do show jumping and dressage and stuff like that. For those of you that don't know what dressage is, it's like horse dancing. But I used to do that when I was a kid, and when I got really deep into getting loaded all the time, it just became unimportant to me, and I stopped doing it for a lot of years. I always knew I liked being around horses, and knew that was something I was passionate about, but I was just convinced that it was gone beyond recall. I was convinced that I would never be able to do that again. And since getting sober, I've been able to start working with horses again on a regular basis. And I've actually been able to start riding horses again on a regular basis. And like I got to tell you, there's nothing more awesome than like hauling ass across the countryside on the back of a horse. For me, that is. That's something that I'm passionate about. I love it. Going fast. And sobriety's given me that again. The steps have given me that again. And yeah, I'm just really grateful for everyone in Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm really grateful for the people that were in this room, in these rooms this whole time, just continuing to like gently try to hand me the message, you know, for all those years that I didn't want to take it and I didn't want to do it because I thought you guys were all nuts and religious nuts, you know. Just I had a lot of bias towards AA for a long time. I refused to accept help, but like I said, the people in these rooms they were there the whole time. They kept trying to give it to me, and then one day I was actually able to hear the message, and I was actually able to start doing this, and I'm so grateful for that. You know, that's why I'm standing up here talking to you guys right now, because I want to try to give the message to somebody else, because it's amazing. You know, my life is, like I said, it doesn't look anything like I would have dreamed that it would look, but it's so much better than what I thought that AA would give me. The results are beyond what I expected. I don't know, I think I'm out of stuff to say tonight, guys. I appreciate you listening to me. Thanks for letting me share.